In today's episode of Commodity Brief, we're going to be looking at Laytime and Demurrage. Laytime is the amount of time which is allowed for cargo operations, and Demurrage is the costs of taking too much time. So if we start from the point of view, if we imagine all of the different vessels which are sailing around the world at any one time, every single one of these vessels is costing somebody money. And there are an awful lot of vessels. If we zoom in a little bit more on West Africa, this is an area of the world where we do have quite a lot of congestion, we have quite a few delays, and so this is quite a serious matter in this area. And if we zoom a little bit further in on the Lagos area, we can see every single one of these dots is a tanker or another type of cargo vessel currently waiting to go into the port. So every single one of these vessels is costing somebody money. Now, if we think about the different voyages, whenever we are chartering a vessel on voyage charter, we will go into discussions with the ship owner and we will agree on a freight rate. That freight rate will cover the transportation of the goods from point A to point B. So when the ship owner is making his calculation, it's quite straightforward in terms of the sailing time from the two ports. The problem is when he has to calculate how much time is taken in the individual ports, and for this there has to be an agreement between the charterer, often the trader, and the ship owner of how much time they are allowed to use and what will be the financial consequences of using too much time. Now, whenever we're looking at Laytime and Demurrage, it's important to realise that we're not just talking about the ship owner and the charterer, because the charterer has often bought the goods on an FOB basis from an exporter, and he will often sell the goods on a CIF basis to an importer. And so the trader, the charterer, is not actually loading and discharging the goods themselves. So we will find ourselves in a situation where we have the trader, the charterer in the middle. We have the ship owner and a contractual relationship with them. We will have the shipper, the exporter, and a contractual relation with them, and the receiver, the importer. And so the idea is that the trader will agree with the shipper for the shipper to load the cargo within a certain number of days or a certain number of hours. Then the trader will ideally agree with the ship owner to load the cargo in the same amount of time, so the trader will find himself in a back-to-back situation without taking on additional risk. He will do the same thing at the discharging port. Now, whenever this amount of time has been allocated, then there has to be a consequence if too much time is taken, and in some cases there will be a bonus if less time is taken. So here we can see quite simply, in blue, we have the Laytime allowance. This is how much time is being given. So here we can see at the loading port, it's being given from the owners to the charterers. It is then being given from the charterers to the shippers. So this is the amount of time that's been allowed. If too much time is taken, then demurrage, a certain number of dollars per day, will be charged for the delay to the vessel, and that is the line in red. And so we can see the demurrage will be paid by the shippers to the trader, charterer, and they will then turn pay it to the ship owner. And on dry cargo, not the case on tankers, but on dry cargo, if the time taken for the loading operations or the discharging operations is less than allowed, then there will be a bonus that comes back to the trader, charterer, from the ship owner, which is the line in green, and then this will be paid onto the shipper as an incentive for quick loading operations. Now, whenever we're looking at Laytime, it's important to think of our point of view. What is it we want? If I am the ship owner, I want to prove that as much time as possible was used so that I can charge as much money. If I am the trader looking at the ship owner, I want to prove that as little time as possible was used so that I pay less money. And so we need to be very careful where we stand. So we need to be very, very careful how we calculate it. So we need to calculate the start of the Laytime, when the time in the port will start, often from the notice of readiness or some adjustment of that, until when the time stops. Maybe the hose is disconnected, maybe the cargo operation is completed, and then there will be times that we deduct from this. And so those were things like the vessel shifting in to the berth, or maybe breakdowns, or maybe bad weather, and different aspects such as that. And so it's an aspect that we need to be very, very, very careful of. Laytime and demurrage can turn a trader's P&L from being very, very attractive into being something that is a bit of a nightmare. Now the thing is that demurrage is delay. It is inefficiency, and there is no other way of describing it except for simply burning money. It is something that everybody wants to avoid from every point of view. The ship owner, his vessel is immobilized. He cannot sail and handle other cargoes. From the charterer, he needs to pay the ship owner. He gets in a fight with his counterparty trying to recover this money, and from his counterparties, then they need to pay it because they have no one to turn against. And so this is something that companies spend a lot of time and effort making sure they get accurate, making sure they get correct. And with this number of vessels around the world, you can imagine how important it is when a demurrage rate on a vessel can be anything from $10,000, $15,000 a day up to $80,000, $90,000 per day. So it's critical for a company, and we can have a lot of small errors. There can be missing a time bar, not presenting the claim within time. We can have problems such as making a mistake in the calculation, and also there can be a problem in the contract itself because the terms were not clear and we don't know how to calculate it. So this has been looking at laytime and demurrage, a very specific area of trading, but it's incredibly important to everybody involved. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Commodity Brief in cooperation with Dukescopy TV. Please click back soon for another episode.